Come to order, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Edward Finley, and with me this evening are Commissioners Brian E. Beatty, Susan W. Raven, and Nolan D. Brown Land. I now call the hearing docket number E7 sub 1026, which is the application of Duke Energy Carolinas LLC for adjustment of rates and charges applicable to electric utility services in North Carolina. On February 4, 2013, Duke filed an application for adjustment of rates and charges applicable to electric utility services in North Carolina and supporting direct testimony of several witnesses. By its application, Duke requests authority to increase its rates and charges to produce additional overall annual North Carolina retail revenues of approximately $446 million, an increase of approximately 9.7% over current revenues. In support of the requested increase, Duke states that over 93% of its request is to recover $3.8 billion in capital investments for plant modernization, environmental compliance, and other capital additions since its 2011 general rate case. Other reasons Duke cites for the requested increase include creation of a storm reserve, enhancements to vegetation management, and costs related to the eventual retirement of nuclear plants, as well as the costs to comply with nuclear regulations related to cybersecurity and Fukushima-related requirements. Duke has also requested to reinstate the company's coal inventory rider because the company's claims the combination of very low natural gas prices and mild winter weather has resulted in less frequent dispatch of coal generating units to supply sales, resulting in coal inventory levels which are temporarily in excess of historical averages. He proposes a rider of 0.0331 cents per kilowatt hour, including road receipt tax and regulatory fee, for all customer classes. This rider amount will recover approximately $18.3 million over a 12-month period, in addition to $446 million requested as noted. On March 4, 2013, the Commission issued a report of scheduling investigation and hearing, suspending proposed rates, establishing intervention, and testimony dates and discovery guidelines and applying for the notice. Whenever the hearing has been scheduled, and while it began July 8, 2013, to hear the witnesses, other parties, and several hearings have been scheduled at locations around the state for the purpose of receiving the testimony of public witnesses. That is the purpose of the hearing here tonight. Interventions for parties have been filed and granted for Carolina Industrial Group for the Fair Utility Rates 3, Carolina Utility Customs Association, Inc., the Kroger Company, the Commercial Group, the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, the North Carolina Group of Municipalities, the North Carolina Waste Awareness and Reduction Network. Several statements of position and local government resolutions have been received and filed in the official file for this document. This brings us up to the hearing before us tonight in compliance with the State Ethics Act on non-government committees and duties of avoid conflicts of interest and required by the Union of the Commission as an unconflict of interest to the matters coming before us this evening. There appear to be no conflicts, so we will proceed, and I now call on the parties to announce their appearances.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Commission, I'm Robert Taylor, appearing on behalf of Duke Energy Carolinas, and I will note that my dad is from Marion, grew up here, my grandparents are here, and I have an uncle, Joseph Taylor, who's a county commissioner.
I'm Bob Gillen with the Legal Division of Public Staff, representing the using and consuming public.
All right, are there any matters that need to be considered before we begin the hearing?
The company would like to make a opening statement, Mr. Chairman.
People who speak may be heard.
This is like a court proceeding, and the parties are able to make opening statements, just like they do on television. Lawyers or their representatives can make opening statements. They're not evidence in the case. They are forecasts of positions of the parties that have to be supported by subsequent evidence or witnesses before that information can be considered by the commission. But we typically allow opening statements, and so if you will make your statements.
Yes, thank you. I'm Robin Nicholson, the District Manager for Duke Energy for this area. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight about the increase our company is requesting and to hear from members of the public who will share their thoughts with us tonight. As you know, this is the third in a series of 3 rate cases related to our modernization program. Over the last 6 years, the company has spent billions to build new state-of-the-art power plants that will serve our customers for decades to come. These new facilities replace the ones that were built in the middle of the last century. I like to ask folks when talking about this, what appliances do you use in your home that are more than 70 years old? Not your washing machine, your stove, your cooktop. Your car is probably newer than that as well. At home, we upgrade our appliances for better efficiency and effectiveness. At Duke Energy, we have upgraded our power plants for the same reasons. Not only are we interested in performance, we are also interested in environmental compliance. Duke Energy is in the midst of an aggressive program to generate electricity in cleaner ways. Company-wide, we have invested $8.9 billion in building new natural gas and coal plants with high efficiency and state-of-the-art emissions controls. 2 of those new North Carolina power plants are part of the rate case we are talking about tonight. Our new natural gas plant at Dan River does the job of 3 older coal units that we've been able to close. It's more efficient and friendly to the environment. Last month, we officially opened our Cliffside Steam Station located on the Rutherford-Cleveland County line. This new clean coal plant does more for less. It burns less coal for more power with fewer emissions. In fact, Cliffside scrubs emissions, removing more than 90% of all mercury and nitrogen oxide and 99% of sulfide dioxides. It also burns less coal per megawatt hour than most other coal plants around the country. We have looked around the corner. Our modernization plan is ahead of most utilities in the country. Our new power plants put us in compliance with ever-increasing environmental laws. We are well positioned for the future. Our job one, however, is making sure the power is on when you need it. If you've seen any of our recent advertising, the theme was that when you flip the switch, you don't have to think about where the power is coming from. We do that, and we do it well. We are building on a strong history of reliable service. Duke Energy has one of the strongest track records for reliability in the nation. And here's why it all matters to us. In today's high-tech world, it's essential that manufacturers, computer facilities, and other large businesses have a highly reliable power supply. When businesses consider expanding in the Carolinas or moving here from another state, they ask about the power supply, cost, and reliability. And yet, even with the increase, we will be well below the national average and competitive in the Southeast region. The daily cost of electricity for a typical North Carolina homeowner is about the price of a gallon of gas. You can drive about 20 miles on a gallon of gas. You can power your home for the entire day for that same price. Electricity is a good value for our customers. Tonight, we look forward to hearing the concerns of our customers, and if possible, we want to address those issues this evening. We have representatives from our billing department, vegetation management, and customer service who will make themselves available. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. Approving this rate case for Duke Energy allows the company to deliver on its promises to customers today and well into tomorrow. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming out this morning. I'm with the Public Transit and Utilities Commission, Public Transit Organization, work with the Utilities Commission and represent the public interest in stations that the commission keeps. We have a staff of numerous skilled engineers, accountants, and economists, audited testimony, you will be able to see our testimony, and in fact, you'll be able to see all the documents filed by us and the other parties of the state looking at the utility division website. Again, I think you've done that tonight, and all of these other examples.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go over some of the rules that we're going to follow tonight. I'm just going to move over here so that I can be heard. I see some familiar faces out there, so bear with me. Some of you folks have heard this already. But as I mentioned earlier this evening, this is a court proceeding. We have a court reporter here who is taking the evidence down. This is an opportunity for Duke's customers to testify and to tell the commissioners what you want us to do with this request that Duke has offered. A lot of people come and they want to ask questions. We have people for the public staff and the company who are available to answer questions, but primarily it's for you to testify and to tell us what it is you want us to do with this case. We want to hear from the Duke customers, not the Progress customers and not the EMC customers. We will hear the Duke customers first. If there's somebody here who is not a Duke customer, we'll see how much time we have, and if there's time at the end, we will take those testimonies. The witnesses must be sworn under state statute. That's a requirement that we must comply with. So you have to swear on the scripture here. If you'd like to affirm, you can do that as well. We would ask you to be as succinct as you possibly can, to be cognizant of the people who are going to be coming after you. People like to get up and make long speeches, and if you do that, you might be interfering with somebody else who's got to go home and look after the children, something like that. And if somebody has said what you want to say before you get here, you can get up and say, I agree with that, and you can elaborate on it if you want to. We want to hear from you, but if it gets particularly repetitious, it really doesn't accomplish all that much. We will take the testimony down. It will become part of the evidence in the case, and the commission will rely upon it when we get back to Raleigh and have heard all the evidence from the professional witnesses as well as the public witnesses, and when the commission ultimately issues its decision. The lawyers here and the commissioners themselves have the opportunity to ask you questions. So we don't want to do too much of that because we know people's time is precious, but they do have that right. We appreciate you being here, and when you testify, we'll have you sitting here, but these are the people who you are addressing, and so try to make your comments so that they can hear and appreciate what you say. All right, Mr. Dillon, call your first witness.
Mayor Steve Lowe.
The testimony about this case was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Steve Little. My address is 370 South Garden Street in Marion, North Carolina.
Thank you, and please proceed with your statement.
Thank you. I come not as a resident of South Garden Street in Marion tonight, but instead as the mayor of the city of Marion. And in that capacity, I try to speak for all of the citizens who live in the city of Marion. And in doing so, I want to express my strongest possible objection to the request that Duke Energy has made for what I consider to be an excessive increase. I do want to acknowledge that I know personally perhaps 4 or 5 people who work for Duke Energy, and I consider them to be fine and honorable people. Robin Nicholson is one of them, Tim Gauls, Jimmy Fallon. There are a few that I have had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit, and they're good people. They aren't the decision makers for Duke, and therefore I don't paint them with the brush that I do paint the policymakers at the corporate office. A request for an increase of the size that we see is unconscionable. The level of return that Duke is seeking is not the level of return that a single member of the community of Marion, North Carolina, can get in any investment. We can't put our money in the bank and get more than most of us, 0.25%. And because that's the current market. To be faced with the proposition that Duke thinks it should receive a double-digit return in this same market is unconscionable. It is simply not reasonable. It is not fair for there to be a difference in the amount of charges depending upon who the customer is. Likewise is something that I struggle to understand the fairness of. I will give you one example. The city of Marion pays roughly $380,000 a year. Now that might not be pocket change to Duke, but that is a heck of a lot of money to the city of Marion. And yet, we have our bill not treated as one bill for $380,000 that could, under this proposal, receive a lower increase. Our bill is divided into 59 different accounts. So our big whopping $380,000 bill, when it's sliced up 59 ways, means we get hammered because our increase is going to be way up here, just like the other little people throughout the state. We're not one of the big guys. We aren't the rich. We aren't the famous. We aren't the powerful. And so we get squeezed and we get hammered and we get sliced up into 59 pieces. And we're not particularly happy about that because it's simply not fair. It is excessive for Duke Energy to think that we would ignore the request. Even though we didn't have much notice of this, I don't doubt that there was technical compliance. But in reality, we learned yesterday afternoon about this meeting tonight. So we're upset about it. It is excessive. It is not reasonable in any regard. A company as big as Duke it looks like that they perceive that they can get anything that they want. I will end my comment with a reflection of something that I remember so well from the autumn of 1971 when I was a college student. I saw a commercial on television one evening that I thought was so unbelievably strange. It was a commercial by the American Petroleum Institute. And I don't remember all that it said, but the end of the commercial showed a visual image of a heart monitor. And the closing comments of the commercial said, a country that runs on oil can't afford to run out. Then there was a flat line. At that time, the price of gasoline was about 40 cents a gallon. Less than 6 months later, surprise, the price of gasoline was about 4 times that. This was simply the Petroleum Institute laying the foundation for we are going to squeeze and we're going to get what we want. And they did. Do the big players think that if they ask for the moon and the stars, that we will then settle for the stratosphere and not fuss? Perhaps, but that is not a successful policy. And I encourage and urge the Utilities Commission to not allow this excessive request. Thank you.
Mayor, you may have so I lengthy speech. I assume you're going to be here for the whole proceeding to listen to all your other taxpayers in this county and others other than this county. But be accurate.
I don't quite understand the relevance of your question, sir, except to try to goad a little bit. You've succeeded in doing that.
asked you if you're going to be here to listen to the other speakers who are committed to something so concerned.
Well, I am very concerned. And you've got some fine family members. I don't know you personally. I'm learning a little bit right now. Thank you.
Any other questions?
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions, Mr. Jones?
No one,
For the testimony about taking this case with the truth, the whole truth, and not law.
Yes, I do.
Will you state your name?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Don Stiver. Live at 404 East Church Street, Bostic, North Carolina. What else?
Please proceed with your statement.
Okay, I'm glad to be here. I picked up some comments. I'm glad I'm an early speaker because the opening statement about having appliances 70 years old, there's a business practice called planned obsolescence. We all know about it. Our appliances aren't designed to last 70 years. I don't see the lady that gave the little opening speech, but when you go to Hoover Dam, you'll see that power plants are built to last a long time. I've done electrical work. I know when you put in bus bars and 750 MCM cable, it's rated for the load and it's made to last. And so it's an unfair comparison. Excuse me. My comments that I intended to make here tonight are, if you try to call Ashland, you won't find them in the phone book. But if you call Duke, they'll transfer you. We all know that Ashland is a subsidiary, whatever, of Duke, and when you pay your energy bill, you know, you're paying for those orange trucks out there that keep the right-of-ways and everything clear and, you know, good for them. I intend to make 2 points, and I'll wrap it up when I do. I had a Ashland truck come out about 2 or 3 years ago, and I have a power pole that says upgrade from my driveway. When you pull up and there's a cedar tree, you have to look through the cedar tree, you know, to see where the power pole is. And from sitting down there, windshield inspection, it looks like the cedar tree was, you know, possibly touching the power line. That cedar tree had been there for, gosh, it must have been 35 years old. About 18 years ago, it was lobbed off about 6 feet below the power line. Okay, I have a service road that goes beside my shop around up to where the power pole is, and you go up there and look at it, and you could always see clearance between the lines and the tree. But the man that come out there to do the, you know, suggest to the crew what needs cut, I know he had to have sat in the driveway and just looked up there, because if he'd gone up to the pole, he would have seen there was no way it was touching. I came home one day to find 4 Ashland trucks, 3 of them on the lawn, 1 of them in the driveway. And they were just finishing up as I got there. And I asked them, what the heck's going on? I looked at that cedar tree, and they'd cut about 4 more feet out of it. Now, when it was lobbed off, it just bushed out and made, like the power line, it just made a nice little, you know, it was a round thing, and birds nested in everything. Now it's lobbed off, and the thing became very ugly. I eventually cut it down because I had like a 12-foot stump with, you know, these 35-year-old tree with branches sticking out. It was ugly. And when I talked to the people about it, the Ashland, the guy actually doing the work, told me, he says, that tree didn't need cut because it's on the work order. And personally, I know, not now, that I could have done it myself in about 30 minutes with a good extension ladder and my chainsaw. And so they send 4 trucks out there, 2 pickup trucks, a boom truck, and a shredder thing. And what overkill that was. There was 6 men to do what 1 or 2 men could do in about 30 minutes. And it was unnecessary. That's my whole point. That tree didn't need cut. Send the foreman out there to make an inspection, make a decision. I know he could not have gotten out of his truck to walk up there. Plus, instead of taking my service road beside the shop, they went right through the yard where all the landscape is. And when I called, tried to call Ashland to make a complaint about it, I called finally Duke, and they just transferred me over to a man named James Boone. Mr. Boone was very arrogant and not at all apologetic or sympathetic or anything. He was just arrogant, and he was hard to talk to, and we came to no agreement. And I told him I didn't appreciate the mess they left and everything else. That's all water under the bridge. The thing is, that whole job was unnecessary. 6 people out there, 4 trucks. Well, and I had to have another person out there to come make the work order or whatever. It's bloated. I know Duke is used to, in the heyday when all the mills were running and the meters were spinning, I'm sure Duke has a big appetite. But now I'm a state worker, and I've worked electrical construction for years prior. I've been called out on Christmas Day because the prison in Watauga, when it was open, had a complete power failure in the kitchen. I was on emergency status, so I went to the prison in Watauga, Boone, and I worked on the fire and got the kitchen back up and running. That day they have the kitchen, fail on you, and there was about 15 inches of snow. At that time, I used to drive my truck home because I'm prison response emergency status, and it was, real nice to have a truck to take home every day. But the state a long time ago figured out, you know what, we don't have the tax base and revenue anymore because jobs are going overseas. And so they started, I've seen the budget through the years. They're saying, you know what, guys, we hate it. We've got to cut back 3%. Okay, this year we've got to cut back another 1.5%. And it's just been cut. We haven't gotten raises like we used to be accustomed to back in the I'm going to say the days of plenty. State workers, we just have to tighten our belt. And we are doing that, but we're watching, like the mayor noted, gas go up, and it has a trickle-down effect on groceries and everything else. And, here Duke is asking for the same thing. It's going to have a trickle-down effect. And I watched Duke Power trucks go up and down the road. They're what can I say? They drive the trucks home every day, new trucks and everything. Companies, state, everybody else, they saw the writing on the wall years ago, and they cut themselves back and put themselves on a diet. And I suggest that that's what Duke Power needs to do. They don't need to imagine that they can continue living a lifestyle the way they always have. If they're not cutting back like everybody else, then where's the fairness in that? There's no ethics or justice or anything else. The whole nation is having to cut the budget, and the people that have lost the factory jobs or whatever, we're all affected by it. But, Duke wants a raise, and so I say, please look at them. If they're operating in the black, then the answer ought to be a no-brainer. It should be a no. Thank you.
Yes. Let me ask you a question about the cedar tree and the line.
Yes.
Distribution line. Was the cedar tree under a distribution line?
From the transformer to my house.
Okay. And how much clearance before the...
Excuse me, wait. No, it was the supply line going to the transformer. Yeah. There was probably, the way it was, between 3 and 4 feet. And the tree's been like that 15 years.
When did the improvements take place?
I registered a complaint with Duke, and it's been, I'm going to say, as recent as 09. So I'm not exactly sure.
And Mr. Boone that you talked to, was he
James Boone Ashland.
employee of the contract?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions on my question? Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
John Edward, and after her, we will call Roy Cuthbert and Clyde Stewart.
Mr. Chairman, can you have them spell their name?
Gentlemen, if you will ask the witnesses to please spell their names on the board for me. testimony about the witness case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed to make yourself welcome.
Yes, sir, will you take the name and address of the record, please?
My name is Donna Edwards, DONNA EDWARDS. I live at 278 Church Street in Marion.
Thank you, and please proceed with your statement.
I will not speak as eloquently as our mayor or the man that just spoke, but I can tell you that when the $169 power bill, if this rate increase comes into effect, will go up to $230-some a month. That's a big increase. And McDowell County is a very poor county, and we have lots of poor people here. And I appreciate Duke Power. I mean, I appreciate having electricity. I'd like it if we had a choice. You know, we can choose our phone companies, we can choose our television service. We can't choose our electric service. It's up to you folks to be fair to us. That's your job, and we count on you to do that. Every time there's an increase, if you live on a fixed income, you have to cut back somewhere else. Now, I have kept foster children through the years, and when they age out, most of these kids have nowhere to go. And someone can't even get identification. So, my husband and I are still taking care of these kids. They still come to our house for food. They still call us when they're sick. They still expect us to buy them a pair of shoes when theirs are wore out. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3 kids. I'm talking about a couple hundred kids. And every time the light bill goes up, that's a kid that's not going to get a pair of shoes, or a kid that might miss a meal. And I know that Duke Power does a fine job at providing electricity, and we couldn't none of us do without it. But there's a lot of people that do without it, that run a drop cord to their neighbors. I know about poor people. I know about being poor, because I'm one of them. And I've been very fortunate that I've never had to run a drop cord, but a lot of people do. And I've had neighbors that used my electricity because they just couldn't pay the bill. And if you everybody needs a raise, and I believe that. I'm not going to get a raise. I live on a fixed income. But I don't care. I do okay. I mean, we keep our bills paid. And we meet all our needs and a few of our wants. But it just seems like Duke Power is not only meeting their needs, they're meeting a lot of their wants and a lot of other people's wants. Thank you.
No question.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Appreciate you coming tonight.
And after him will be Clarence Good and Lily McDonald.
Testimony about giving this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you, name and address for the record, sir.
Excuse me, I've got a medical condition right now. My name is Lloyd Cuthbertson, 201 Broadway Street, Marion, North Carolina.
And is your name spelled C-U-C-A-B-E-R-T-S-O-N?
Yes.
Thank you, please proceed with your statement.
Let me thank you for the opportunity to talk to the commission again. We welcome you to the City of Marion. I'm Lloyd Cuthbertson, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Marion, and I'm here to represent the citizens of Marion. First, let me vent my frustration about the scheduling of this meeting. If I had not received a call from Raleigh at my home on Sunday night inquiring if I was planning to attend and speak at this meeting, I possibly would have missed my opportunity to address the commission, as I've done since 2009. In addition, the City of Marion did not receive notification of the meeting until Tuesday, May 21, 2013. My last point concerning my frustration is that the meeting was scheduled for Wednesday night, which is a traditional church night for many of the citizens who will be directly affected by the rate increase. Based on these factors, it is my opinion that these actions do not speak well of a transparent government. Second, in relation to the requested rate hike by Duke Energy, it is poor timing in that the city, county, and public schools are trying to develop a budget for 2013-2014 in a time of uncertainty of the actions of the North Carolina General Assembly and the effect of their actions on local government. The city of Marion currently pays Duke Energy approximately $398,000 annually for our 59 separate Duke Energy accounts. According to city staff, applying the percentage increase proposed by Duke Energy will increase the amount paid Duke Energy by approximately $40,000 for fiscal year 2013-2014, which is equal to approximately 1 cent on our city tax rate. Third, many of our citizens are on fixed income and must make decisions whether to eat, pay for medications, or pay Duke Energy. Only Duke Energy has recourse to forced payment. Fourth, household consumers who use a lesser amount of electricity than the average household will actually pay more per kilowatt used. This discourages energy saving effects for these customers in that the move may save kilowatt usage but increase energy costs. Finally, I suggest that Duke Energy use the money that has been spent the last few months on media presentations, especially television advertisements, in an attempt to influence public opinion and apply that money to cover Duke Energy's operating expenses. Thank you.
Mr. Cuthbertson, I believe you passed the document to the commissioner. Would you like to pass that if it's admitted into the record as exhibit?
Would I like to what?
To have that document admitted into the record as exhibit.
Who would I give it to?
To the court.
Writing that Mayor Pro Tem Crawfordson has given us is Crawfordson, did nothing else.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Mr. Hood, and following him will be Lily McDonald and Michael Blackford.
Solemnly swear that testimony about this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Mr. Hood, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Clarence Hood. I live at 2690 Sigmundary Road, Newton.
And Hood is H-O-O-D.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, please proceed with your statement.
Well, I serve as chairman of our Agricultural Advisory Board in Catawba County, and also I'm vice president of Catawba County Farm Bureau. And I want to thank the Utilities Commission members for coming over here to Marion to listen to the citizens in this region concerning proposed electricity rate increases. And I'm here to speak on behalf of agribusiness and farmers in my county, and I think the comments I have will apply to most agricultural enterprises in this part of the state. We have, of course, in North Carolina, most people don't realize it, but it's a $70 billion plus industry, that is agribusiness, and it's the number one industry, number one provider of income in North Carolina. And tourism, I believe, is number two, military is number 2, and tourism, I think, is number 3. And it's a growing enterprise. It's a vision. Even our governor talks about increasing up to $120 billion in the next 20 years. So while this rate increase significantly impacts agriculture, the steady decrease in technical support that Duke Energy has provided agriculture is of equal, if not greater, concern to us in agriculture. I want to briefly review the history of a successful partnership between utility companies and agriculture that began back in the 1950s. Agricultural engineers were employed by utilities to advise farmers on efficient electricity use and how to best select electrical equipment for their operation. We can go across our farms even here today in the western part of the state and still see the central pole systems that were put up where farmers back up and hook up their generators and supply electricity to the farm. So there's you might say, a footprint of what these engineers did over the years that's still with us today. Well, in the 1960s through up the 80s, I had a conversation with one of the managers of the agricultural engineering program, and he described to me that they had around 10 agricultural engineers serving Duke in the North and South Carolina area. Carolina Power and Light Company had a similar support program. Well, we fast forward here to early 2013, and there's only one agricultural support position remained with Duke Energy in what is called the Agricultural Market Program. And the title of this individual is Agricultural Specialist Account Manager. Well, Duke Energy recently announced that this last position is being eliminated, so there will be no one who farmers can contact directly day or night to deal with electrical issues. Well, in addition to supporting farming operations, this Ag Market Program technical person has led the nationally recognized 4-H Electric Congress in North and South Carolina. And this program teaches energy conservation and safe electricity use to our youth. Been in, I think since in the 40s, this has been a very successful program. And through this program, Duke has had linkages with FFA programs, Future Farmers of America, across our state and in South Carolina as well, and with NC State University, North Carolina A&T State University, and Clemson University, and farm organizations such as North Carolina and South Carolina Farm Bureaus, and the Agribusiness Council, and the Soil and Water Conservation District program. And it's critical that we keep this agricultural market program. In fact, it needs to be expanded, not curtailed. And let me give just one example of this need for one of the fastest growing farm enterprises in this state, in this part of the state, and maybe across the state for that matter, is the poultry broiler industry. Growers need independent advice and technical assistance in upgrading existing poultry houses with energy efficient lighting and ventilation equipment. And for new construction, the typical broiler house, and again, these figures I'm going to give you are figures that I've obtained, they're approximate figures. But a typical house, poultry house, people don't realize has about 25,000 chicks in it, or eventually chickens that will be raised out, maybe 4 or 5 flocks per year. The cost of one of these houses, anywhere between $200,000 and $250,000 per house to construct and build these units, and they're typically built in 4 or 6 units. And this is a single location usually. And the owners of the two of the newest family operations in our county came out of the home construction business. They came out of something that was depressed and went into agriculture, and they started poultry farms with no previous poultry production experience. One of them has only been in business, I'd say, about 3 years, and he has 14 houses. Another family has 6 houses. And they depended on the Ag Market Program technical support from Duke to make wise decisions in purchasing and installing equipment in these new facilities. suppose you're a typical producer with 6 houses, 150,000 birds made at one time, and you have a lightning strike or other electrical issue with no ability to feed or cool your chickens. You need a person you can call at Duke Energy day or night to resolve this issue, and not an answering machine. It just won't cut it. We're talking about a lot of money on the line, and we're talking about animals that are facing death if something doesn't happen. And one poultry integrator has announced plans to expand the number of broiler houses by 200 over the next 2 years. And farmers will need technical support from Duke Energy to make this happen. And this is a great, if you think about all the investment that's going to be in 200 houses, how many jobs that's going to create, how many people in transportation will be involved in this. It's going to be a great thing for this area if it comes about, but there's going to be help that's going to be required. And in terms of the impact of the proposed rate increase on agriculture, in particular for poultry farmers, a typical boiler house in this area consumes somewhere around 50,000 kilowatt hours per year. And if we think about a rate of about 7.9 cents per kilowatt hour, you're talking about $3,900 per year to operate a chicken house. If you've got 6 houses, it doesn't take long to get over $20,000 tied up in an electric bill. In summary, in our current economic environment, when agriculture is the economic sector pulling our economy along, now is not the time to terminate the Duke Energy Agriculture Market Program nor increase rates. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to share these concerns this evening.
Mr. Hood, one more question.
Yes, sir.
When you have one of these broiler houses and the power is interrupted and you have power outage, how long does it take before the chicks start dying?
Well, it's required by the integrator that you have a generator for, particularly, it requires a generator for 2 to 4 houses. That's the reason it requires that you build at least 4 houses at a time, because you've got this tremendous investment in the generator and computer. But you can have other things happen, not necessarily, things can happen that cause electrical surges and things that they don't have control over, and the generator will not solve that problem. Also, static electricity is another major issue where you have animals and dairies and things like that. And this person has always been the one that's called to help detect where that electrical problem is coming from.
And my question is, are these chicks very vulnerable so that they die soon after there's a power problem if it doesn't fit?
Well, I can tell you this, when they run out of feed and then the feed comes back on, these chickens will run there and smother themselves to death if you don't regulate the light properly and the feed to gradually bring them back on forward. So it's very critical how you handle these. So to say how long it would take before the chicks die, I can't answer your question precisely on that. But I do know it's very critical that you have this energy supply and you keep all this equipment and until it's computer operated to function, and you know what lightning does to a computer.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Bates has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
The agriculture advisor positions that you say Duke is planning to eliminate, have you or someone with your board talked with them about that?
Yes, sir. It's very much. I've already sent a letter to Duke Energy. We have a reply from them, and yes, we've been working on this for several months. We just felt like this is an opportunity that we needed to share this here.
What has been their reply?
Their reply was that I would summarize it kind of this way, that they felt like they had other technical people that could handle this problem. Our position is that we need a person night or day that can be called to deal with this, not an answer machine, and a person that has experience with biological systems, and that's what these agricultural engineers are trained for. They have the program at NC State, continues there to offer BS graduates who do an excellent job at this. And it's just unfortunate over the years this is just kind of converged down to one position, and now it's jeopardy. So
The other technical people you said they have available, would they be available 24/7?
I cannot answer that. The only thing I know is my experience in life is if I know a person that I can call. I've got their cell phone, and I can reach them night or day, and they don't mind me calling them. That's who we call. But an answering machine, you know, it just, or power on, you know, that sort of thing that wouldn't work for we have a critical need like this. It's almost like a hospital in a sense, except for not humanized.
If this seems to still be willing to consider some type of arrangement that would be helpful.
I think you need to ask them that question, sir. I can't answer that, but we have made our case, tried to in a letter form and other means.
Thanks, sir.
Well,
Mr. Hood, so, as I understand you, right now there's just one person in this position that the department's can call, right? And all the
that's my understanding. I'm taking an oath here and say I only know what I know, and that's my.
How long, to your knowledge, how long has it been just one person?
I can't answer that, ma'am. It's been several of years, but I can't answer that question. I'm sorry.
So several years, in your experience or in your knowledge, do you know, has that relationship with the one person, has that been successful? Is that effective? Having just the one person?
Well, it's not effective in covering the, you know, I mean, you know, we've had the merger of Progress with Duke, and it used to be Carolina Power and Light, and like I say, years ago we had as many, as my recollection was 10 that served North and South Carolina just with Duke. Carolina Power and Light had that, South Carolina and Gas had it, co-ops had those folks, and so I'm dodging your question here, but
Has there been with the decrease in the number of positions that serve in the advisory role, has there been an increase in known problems that the department has?
well, by having a single person, if you can contact that person, then they can get the other resource people within Duke Energy, you know, to help resolve the problem. But again, it takes somebody that understands what a farmer is up against, particularly in this when they're dealing with livestock or poultry or dairy, to make, you know, to help them get the resolution of the problem. So the single person that's done this, I would see them at the Farm Bureau meetings. I would see them in places like that, events that were taking place. They really are the liaison with Duke Energy as far as what agricultural policy is and what the agricultural community is trying to do.
How has that relationship worked? In other words, each time there's an issue and a farmer calls, they automatically get this person always picks up the phone?
Yeah.
Or does the person call them back?
Ma'am, I can't answer that. I've never called this person myself on an emergency situation like that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you like to have those comments? Did you give those verbatim?
Pretty much.
Thank you. We'll take them.
Mr. McDonald, and following her will be Mr. Blackburn, and after that, Mr. Phil Bessetti. I hope that's close to the correct pronunciation.
Solemnly swear that the testimony document out there. Solemnly swear that the testimony document in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Will McDonald. I live on 278 Church Street.
And is that MACDONALD?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please make your statement.
My family, they do a lot for me. They give me allowance $10 a month, 10, 20. So if Duke raises the bills, I know my allowance is going to drop. And I don't really need the allowance, but it's going to pay for stuff I need. So if I don't get that stuff I need for school, or clothes and stuff like that, I don't really get to get my education. So, yeah. So my education means I get to go to college and yada, yada, yada. But, yeah, so my family, they're paying for that. So if that drops, yeah, get the Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Don. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Mr. Blackburn. The next two will be Mr. Bethesda and Louis Sampson.
So, Mr. Testimony about this case, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, Dr.
I do.
Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Michael Blackburn. I live at 4141 16th Street Northeast in Hickory, North Carolina.
And your name is B-L-A-C-K-B-U-R-N.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry I don't write very well.
Please proceed with your statement.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm a healthcare executive with about 40 years experience in healthcare. About 25 years of that has been as president and CEO of hospitals. So I have hospital experience in 3 different states in the South, and I have experience with power companies in the South. And I have had to evacuate a hospital in an emergency situation when the power was out, because power is necessary for any hospital to function. And while hospitals have generators, and while there are other things that have generators like chicken houses, the fact is, if something happens in a hospital and the generator doesn't work just right, people are going to have problems. It can be a serious life-threatening problem. So it's a big deal in a hospital when the power goes out. I've been over 14 hospitals in North Carolina and South Carolina from a management standpoint at once for a company called QHR. We hired CEOs, CFOs who ran those hospitals. They're all not-for-profit. Some of those are close to here. During my time working with those hospitals and new to North Carolina at that time, I learned a lot about Duke Power from my hospital CEOs. Some of that was from their response and their work together, and some of that was from their community involvement. And it was a positive thing, and that's something I hadn't heard as much in other states. Well, I'll be honest with you, when I became the president and CEO of Fry Regional Medical Center a few years ago, I was only concerned with one thing with regard to Duke Power, and that was, how much is it going to cost me on my expenses? What's the rate going to be, and how much is it going to cost me to provide this? It's very expensive in a hospital for power, no question about it. But I thought I would come here today when I heard about this hearing to give a slightly different perspective there. Not so much the function of the rate, but what Duke Power meant to us from a business standpoint and what it meant to us from a community standpoint. From a business standpoint, at Fry, we experienced on several occasions the need in emergency situations to have a drastic response, a huge response from Duke. We had one situation where actually our maintenance folks working with a transformer had it explode in our basement. It was ours. It was not Duke's. And what it did was shut out a large portion of our hospital and burned up all the lines all the way out to the street. And it caused their transformers to have a problem. And what they did for us that time and on 2 previous occasions was respond in a huge way with all their equipment. They were most helpful from the standpoint of the knowledge level of their people. They went beyond what we really needed them to do, which is simply bring power up to the building. They basically helped us get that place back online quickly. And in doing so, they kept us from having to evacuate portions of the hospital and put patients at risk. We didn't forget that. That was important to us. And it happened on more than one occasion, and it was very impressive to me from the standpoint of Duke as a corporate partner to business. They were great for us, and they continue to be. But the other aspect I want to bring to you is in my current responsibility. I recently retired from Fry. I continue to be involved in the community, which I always have been. And my involvement includes immediate past president of the Chamber of Commerce there.
on about 6 boards, including social services and Rotary and things like that. But I'm also in the United Way as the president of the United Way board. And I want to let you know that it's impressive to me, especially as we work with all the charities there, to see the corporate involvement and the employee involvement that Duke has had, not only serving on that board and being involved in the campaigns and everything, but I think also in seeing them go to those individual charities that provide the services they do during the times right now when they need it the most, with so many people unemployed and so many people at risk. And they and their employees have done an outstanding job, and it's something that I think we nearly take for granted. But not only people like Robin Nicholson that are on the board, but also other folks from their regional offices that come and work on the campaigns and the allocation committees and everything. So I wanted to share that perspective with you and make sure that we're looking a little more than right, because quite honestly, when I first came here, that's all I cared about. Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Sessions, and after him will be Mr. Payne and Jeff Mack.
Solemnly swear that the testimony about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I do. I'll see you later, yourself.
If you state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Philip Besessi, founder of Affiliated Consultants Engineers in Black Mountain. My clients include a number of people who are hurting, who are Duke Power customers.
Before you get into your statement, I've been asked to help the court reporter and office by making sure everybody's name is spelled right and your name is spelled B-I-S-E-S-I.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Small industry is especially hurting right now. They don't get the great rates that big industry gets. And they get awfully confused by Duke salesmen who won't explain to them what demand charges are. They end up with big bills because they don't know how to manage their power. They get stories from Duke like, if you put in demand control, we'll charge you thousands of dollars for the dry contacts on our meter so it'll work and you'll never get that money back. I mean, all the confusion out there by the Duke salesman over how much our customers are paying in demand charges is really the unfairness. So I've been licensed to practice engineering since '65, a charter member of the Association of Energy Engineers in '76. Now I'm in the Sierra Club, and I'm here tonight speaking for the Physicians for Social Responsibility. So the longer I am practicing as an engineer, the more I realize it's not all about energy, environment, economics. It's about social justice. What is fair? What is in the common good? This is what I, as an engineer, have to address every day. And this is what is lacking in the mission of Duke Power, that just feels all they have to do is provide more and more power and everybody will be okay. Well, that isn't true. Energy efficiency is necessary. It just makes no sense it makes more sense to harvest the sun than to fight it. So I'm here as a voice calling for social justice and common good. is it fair for Duke to use risky and expensive nuclear power rather than renewable energy? And I contend that renewable energy, if we look at total cost to society, renewable energy is less expensive than nuclear energy. And I want to look at economics, total economics. What's the total cost to society? Not return on investment, not 12% guaranteed profit based on all the money they can suck out of us to invest in new plants. But total economics, what does it totally cost society for this energy? What's the effect of that coal pond that's about to dump itself into the French Broad River? What's the effect of the mercury in the air? I'm going to close now with saying I want to live to 100 or die hiking unless Duke's pollution kills me first.
You indicated on the sign-up sheet that you were here on behalf of CSR and AEE.
Yes.
Is CSR Positions for Social Responsibility?
Yes.
And what is AEE?
Association of Energy Engineers.
And did I understand you to say that you representatives were discouraging people from putting in demand control?
Yes. Now that's old history perhaps, but I don't know what they're doing today. But I do know that the rate structure is such that you can't understand what you're paying for demand. Now I have to use third-party software to calculate utility bills. The algorithm for calculating utility bills is so great. 20 years ago, I had somebody inside Duke give me the algorithm so I could calculate them. But whereas 30 years ago, they were more cooperative in helping me to calculate things. But it's very confusing when you look at the rate structure to figure out if I put in a 100 horsepower motor and run it 2,000 hours a year, and what is the total cost of operating that motor? How much of it is demand and how much of it is energy? Also, what is the effect if I find a way to slow it down during peak periods without affecting comfort too much? How will that affect the total operation? There's no transparency in the electric bill, and that is a frustration to consulting engineers. If it's a frustration to consulting engineers, imagine what it is to businessmen in businesses who are trying to understand their electric bill.
Now I believe you said you don't know whether that's still true today, but this incident of discouraging people from putting in demand control, was that a good many years ago?
I do not have first-hand information on that. I have not addressed that problem in the past 8 years. So I don't know if there's, but I will say that the rate structures are still such that it's very hard to understand what happens if you have a big piece of equipment operating for a short number of hours as compared to smaller pieces of equipment operating longer hours. Hard to understand that because of the rate structure. Now, back in the 60s, Commonwealth Edison area, it was 2 cents a kilowatt hour, $2 a kilowatt demand. I could make some real intelligent calculations quickly. That I was doing better engineering in Chicago in the 60s than we can do now, just because things were simpler then and we had a better handle on what we were doing. Of course, that was when the electric companies were telling us atomic power is going to be cheap. Now we know atomic power can't even exist without federal subsidies. So things have changed, but the basic engineering principle of do no harm, of look at the common good, is still vital.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Mr. Payne, Dr. Payne, and after that is Mr. Mann, and then Bob Boyd. Please have a seat with us.
To affirm that I will tell the truth.
You solemnly affirm the testimony about this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Payne, will you state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm deaf. I'm having trouble hearing you.
May I approach the witness? Dr. Payne, will you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Dr. Louis Patry, P-A-T-R-I-E, of Asheville, North Carolina.
And I apologize for calling you Payne. It is P-A-T-R-I-E.
That is correct.
And you are here on behalf of the UN's Western North Carolina Physicians for Social Responsibility.
That is correct.
Thank you, and please proceed with your statement.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to testify regarding Duke Energy's recently announced proposed rate increase, particularly in regard to perpetuating nuclear power. Despite industry's denial, nuclear power is prohibitively dangerous. None of the three best-known serious nuclear reactor accidents, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima, were supposed to have been possible. The report, Chernobyl, Consequences of the Catastrophe for People and the Environment, published by the New York Academy of Science, concluded that nearly 1 million people have died, mainly of cancer, as a result of the 1986 Chernobyl accident. The worst industrial disaster ever to take place was at Fukushima, and is still contaminating the Japanese landscape and beyond. Its eventual death toll may even prove greater than Chernobyl. Experts predict future unavoidable nuclear power disasters. The current situation at Sharon Harris could be another one of many close calls that have occurred among U.S. nuclear reactors. Nuclear power is so prohibitively expensive, none would exist without substantial governmental subsidies from taxpayers and ratepayers. Our government has even provided the Price-Anderson Act to ensure the industry from liabilities in the event of nuclear accidents. Since nuclear waste will be dangerous forever and no satisfactory solution has yet been found, we are dumping this problem on future generations. Nuclear reactors, and especially waste storage sites, are vulnerable to terrorist attack. If a large plane were flown into a spent nuclear fuel site, the disaster could be worse than Chernobyl was. Nuclear reactors, as well as coal power, epitomize privatization. We would be freer and more in control of our lives if facilities and decision-making were to be more decentralized. Nuclear power is the ultimate way of centralizing power, putting it in the hands of experts and transnational corporations. In contrast, benign methods of supplying power, such as wind, solar, and heat pumps, can be in the control of local communities and even individuals. Nuclear proponents have warned the development of wind and solar energy may weaken the nuclear industry. How could that be anything but an advantage? Those experts deny that the decades-old nuclear industry is a welfare program, that renewables have become less expensive and growing, while nuclear power has been doing just the opposite. And this in the face of low levels of public funding for development of sustainable energy. This is despite general awareness that North Carolina has great offshore wind potential and a greater solar potential than Germany, where solar power is very much on the increase as they are beginning to phase out nuclear power. Despite governments favoring nuclear power, perhaps due to vast amounts of money and effort being put into lobbying by power companies, we join citizens advocacy groups which generally favor conservation and truly renewable energy sources.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, and after him will be Mr. Boyette and Matt Blackwood.
Testimony after this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help God.
Yes, sir.
Would you state your name and address?
Jeff Mast, 2300 South Creek Road, Nebo.
And that is MASC.
That's correct.
Please proceed with your statement.
I'm here to represent my employer, Banner Greenhouses, also of Nebo. We're a wholesale commercial producer of annual flowering plants that flows to the mass market. We employ about 23 people year-round, 40 additional people seasonally. As a business manager, I'm responsible for the profitability of our company, among other things. And producing high-quality plants profitably is a real challenge. Controlling costs is a larger challenge. Our products are commodities, and as such, we cannot pass along price increases to our customers. We have to absorb cost increases. And that affects our profitability, that affects the ability to build and grow our company and to benefit our employees. We've had to learn to do more with less during the last few years of this economic downturn. At the same time, we've had to improve quality and service to our customers. And this being the case, I can't speak in favor of any cost increase from any supplier. And we consider Duke a supplier partner. Energy and labor are our largest costs, energy being electricity, propane, gasoline, and diesel. And we've seen much more volatility and price increases in those other forms of energy than we have with electricity. At the same time, I fully understand, I respect, and I expect the need for our supplier partners to reinvest, to protect and improve their abilities to supply our needs. Without these improvements, cost increases can be greater and their services they supply can be impacted. We're in the egg business. We produce living things similar to poultry. And so we need consistent energy. Everything we do is driven by electricity for heat, for cooling, for water. In the past, we had an agricultural representative that we could contact 7 days a week, 24 hours a day when there was a power outage. And that position has been eliminated. And that position was very helpful to us, as we needed to know when power was out, when it would be returned on, and so we can make changes, we can make adjustments, get generators, tell employees to stay home. Our products have to be cooled, they have to be heated, they have to be watered. So that information was critical to us. That gentleman also helped us mitigate price increases through showing us efficiencies by helping us with our equipment. One last comment I'd like to make, I'd like to thank Duke actually for several years ago clearing the right-of-way of the power lines, which has really reduced the amount of power outages we've had and has helped me have more nights with full sleep. Thank you.
Mr. Boyette, and following him will be Mr. Blackwell and Ellen Thompson.
Solemnly swear that the testimony not given in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
My name is Bob Boyette, B-O-Y-E-T-T-E, 269 Forest Road, Marion.
Please proceed with your statement.
Chairman Finley and commission members, thank you for the chance to speak. I'm the city manager of the city of Marion and am here to express the vehement opposition of the city of Marion to the rate increases proposed by Duke Energy. I'd first like to express the disappointment of the city in the way notice for the public hearing in Marion was handled. The city only learned about this hearing to be held here last evening, 24 hours prior to the public hearing, after being informed by the local media, who I also believe was only informed of the public hearing yesterday. While we have a decent crowd, I think with adequate notice there would have been a room full of people and a lot more public comment. The proposed rate increase that Duke is seeking for residential customers is approximately 14%. We understand that business customers would see increases of between about 8 and 11%. The rates of industrial customers would rise by about 3%. Given the current economy, with the budgets of households, businesses, industries, governments, and nonprofit organizations stretched to the limit, it is a terrible time to impose such large rate increases, especially since this is the third time that Duke has sought a rate increase since 2009, on top of other fuel adjustments that have been approved. In April, the North Carolina Supreme Court set aside Duke's 2012 rate increase. Until that matter is settled by the Utilities Commission, it's the City of Marion's opinion, for whatever it's worth, that no new rate increases should be considered. The City of Marion is a major power user. Our power costs for the current fiscal year will be approaching $400,000. However, we're not really treated like a large customer, but as Mayor Little mentioned, as 59 separate accounts with various rate categories. It seems that as a major power customer, the city should be treated in the same manner as industrial customers who are getting a very low rate increase this time. The proposed rate increase will cost the City of Marion about $40,000 per year, 1 penny on the tax rate, or you could look at it as 1 police officer, 1 firefighter, on top of other rate increases and fuel adjustments that Duke has imposed. The City of Marion simply can't absorb such rate increases, nor can our households, businesses, industries, and nonprofit organizations. I would note that cities like Marion were disproportionately affected a few years ago by extremely high and unwarranted rate increases for street lighting. Given this rate increase, given that cities must pay a flat fee for lighting whether the lights are burning or not, that Duke is typically slow with repairing burned out street lights and makes no effort to assist cities with finding burned out street lights, the lighting part of the proposed rate increase should be rejected outright. The city would request that rate increases for other classes of service be rejected as well, or reduced to the lowest possible increase necessary to avoid households, businesses, industries, governments, and nonprofit organizations from having to bear tremendously high and unbudgeted costs. These rate increases will simply be a burden on everyone and should not be imposed. Duke needs to tighten its belt and absorb costs like the City of Marion has had to do and all households have had to do, instead of passing them on to customers. The request by Duke to seek a guaranteed minimum profit of 11.25% is just terrible and should simply not be allowed. Duke should be able to survive with a much lower profit margin and not be a drag on the budgets of households, businesses, industries, nonprofit organizations, and local governments. Approval of the requested rate increase, or any rate increase at all, will hinder efforts of our state and communities to recover from the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. So we respectfully ask the Utilities Commission to reject this request by Duke Energy outright, or as a last resort, to reduce the rate increases to a much smaller amount. Thank you for the chance to speak.
Let me ask you something about the communications problem with when this hearing would be.
How do you all normally find out about a hearing that's coming up?
That's a good question. The last two rate increases, public hearings that have been held here, we found out about them earlier. I can't say exactly what the manner was, but we knew about them. This hit us. We knew that Duke was proposing the rate increase, that the filing had been done, but did not know that a hearing had been scheduled for Marion.
Thank you. Question. You indicated that you had several different accounts. Did you realize that you got billing certs and those accounts advising you of this public hearing?
That very well may have been the case, but that's handled by accounts payable people.
Thank you.
Well, hold on a minute. I'm looking at the Commission's order of March 4, 2013. And order in paragraph 9 says that the company shall, at its own expense, publish in newspapers having general coverage in its service area a notice of hearing attached to Appendix A. And you have a lengthy notice here once a week for 2 consecutive weeks, at least 45 days in advance of the first public hearing. Are you saying that no such notice was published here?
No, sir. I'm saying that we were not aware of it. It may very well, and I'm sure the legal requirement was met, but it was not in a sufficient way to be noticed for whatever it's worth.
And I'm looking at paragraph 10 here. The company shall mail to each of its customers a copy of the notice of hearing no later than 45 days in advance of the first public hearing set herein. So if council payable got a notice of the public hearing, it wouldn't get to you as the city manager?
It apparently did not, so maybe that's our own failing, but I would make note of it.
Mr. Blackwell, and then will be Judge Thomas and Grant Henson.
So if the testimony about business cases is approved, the whole thing, nothing about the city council.
Yes, sir.
Will you state the name and address for the record, please?
Matt Blackwell, 142 East Main Street, Forest City, North Carolina.
Is that the CLACKWELL?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed with your statement.
I'm the Executive Director of Rutherford County Economic Development, and here today to speak on behalf of our partnership with Duke Energy in our efforts to attract and retain quality jobs and investment in Rutherford County. When companies are deciding where to locate or expand, one of the first things they look at is the electricity, the infrastructure, the rates in that community. Many companies will both look at reliability and price during the site selection process. Reliable, low-cost electricity provided by Duke Energy was a contributing factor to the location of two major industries in Rutherford County. Leadership of both Facebook and Horsehead Corporation have cited reliability and the attractive power costs, along with the skilled workforce and government incentives, as reasons Rutherford County was selected for their new projects. Combined, Facebook and Horsehead have invested more than $1.3 billion, temporarily employed more than 4,500 construction workers, and will permanently employ more than 300 full-time permanent employees in Rutherford County. Duke Energy's cooperation as a partner in economic development has certainly contributed to the successful location of both projects. Duke Energy's economic development team frequently partners with Rutherford County to provide infrastructure and rate information to prospective industries conducting a site search. Many times we have to react on very short notice, and Duke Energy's economic development team always performs superior in this category. Additionally, Duke Energy partners with counties to review buildings and sites to evaluate readiness and buildability through their Duke Site and Building Readiness Program. Rutherford County has been selected on 3 occasions since 2009 to participate in the Site and Building Readiness Program. On each occasion, Rutherford County received a complete review and analysis of a building and/or site by a well-recognized site location consulting firm. The result of this review include the identification of strengths, weaknesses, recommended next steps, and the recommended target industries for those buildings and sites. In addition, the community marketing efforts are evaluated and a report card is provided to the community based on the site and/or building submittal package and the site visit presentation conducted. A buildability study and conceptual site plan from a qualified land planning and engineering firm is completed and submitted to Rutherford County in additional and hard copy as a part of this program. Upon completion of the study, Duke Energy also provides a $10,000 grant matching local funds invested in making the sites more ready for marketing and development. For a mere $500 investment for the communities that are selected for this program, Duke Energy provides professional engineering, land planning, and site location consulting services that are most likely out of financial reach for many rural communities, including Rutherford County. Let's not forget Duke Energy's investment in the new clean coal technology Cliffside facility located on the border of Rutherford and Cleveland County. During construction, countless residents in Rutherford and Cleveland County were employed and added disposable income to their families' pockets for the first time in many years. We are thankful for the partnership with Duke Energy in advancing our economic development efforts in Rutherford County and look forward to continuing to promote Duke's low-cost, reliable electricity to future industrial prospects. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 45 minutes now. We're going to take a 15-minute recess and come back. You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Ma'am, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Okay, I'm Ellen Thomas, that's Thomas, and I live in Tryon, North Carolina.
And I believe on the sign-up sheet it says 401 Wilcox Road.
Yes, 401 Wilcox Road, Tryon, North Carolina.
Please proceed with
All
your
right.
statement.
First, I want to thank the commissioners for having another rate hike hearing. Once again, I've traveled quite a distance to film it the last time, but this time I felt like I really wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk to the representative from Duke Energy because I'm not only a ratepayer, but I'm also a shareholder. When my mother died, she left me a few $1,000s, and I bought a share of stock in Duke Energy so I could come to the meeting and make a proposal. And unfortunately, I was not able to get to that meeting for one reason. I did not get notice from Duke Energy about the meeting, even though I was a shareholder. But, so I thought that I would like to tell you today that if I had been there, I would have proposed that instead of building new nuclear reactors, Duke Energy invest in building solar panels and windmills and promote retrofitting existing buildings. That instead of monopolizing the energy, that you help to create a cooperative that will include and foster and promote alternative sources of energy, not nuclear and not fossil fuels, but help ratepayers to install solar panels on their roofs or windmills on top of their hills, and pay you off over a period of time and build a smart grid that will make sense so that instead of building new nuclear reactors, which I believe we do not need if we act wisely, use that money instead to create new businesses that will help to create a new energy economy. And so I'll come next year and make that proposal. But I wish you would get it back to the folks at Duke and let them know that I'm proposing this. And if Duke were to seek a rate increase to accomplish this, I might actually be willing for there to be a rate increase, but I oppose any rate hike that would mean I'm paying for nuclear power. Also, I'm a grandmother living on Social Security, and not a lot of Social Security because I never made a whole lot of money. And every time you raise the rates, there's just some other things that I'm not able to do, and I'm supporting 2 adults and 4 animals on my Social Security, and when it gets to the end of the month, I got, you know, maybe $20 or $30 left in my account. And so if you raise the rates 14% on me, then I'm not going to have that $20 or $30 left in the account, and maybe I won't be able to get vaccinations for my animals, and it's that tight in my house. So that's basically what I wanted to say. Except that as a shareholder, I think that it's wrong to guarantee me 11.25% profit while taking more and more money away from the people who are paying the bills. And if you're going to have a rate increase for the ratepayers, then I think that the ratepayers should become shareholders in Duke Energy and get a share of the profits when you have them.
Grant Mincy.
I swear the testimony about to give this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, it is Grant Mincy, M-I-N-C-Y, and I live at 45 Charity Lane, that is Candler, North Carolina.
And I understand from the sign-up sheet that you are representing CWFMC.
Yeah, that's for Clean Water for North Carolina.
Please proceed with your statement.
All right, I have quite a bit of written comments here and also some fact sheets that I would like to submit afterwards. So I'll just keep my comments pretty brief since it's getting late. But I am here today as a representative of Clean Water for North Carolina, but also as a ratepayer, and I'm here to oppose the rate hikes put forward by Duke Energy. So if approved, this utility monopoly will dictate to consumers how we get our energy, and this will come from high-cost sources such as coal, natural gas, and nuclear, while backing away from energy conservation, efficiency, weatherization, and investment in renewable energy sources. So I'm here to urge this commission to truly represent the public interest. Investment in energy efficiency, weatherization projects, and conservation will lower rates for consumers and benefit not only the environment in North Carolina, but all of the southeastern bioregion. We should not be paying for fossil energy when we could be saving money with efficiency and conservation programs. Many people cannot afford an increase in rates, especially the low income. Low income households will surely be the most impacted from this plan. Due to poor energy efficiency, on average, low-income households have to consume more energy to heat and cool their homes. In these economic times, it has been increasingly difficult to make ends meet for many working families. Furthermore, the ecological, environmental, and public health costs will not be footed by Duke Energy. We consumers will share the collective burden of coal surface mining, natural gas exploration, and nuclear investment. All that we ask is to please invest in efficiency, conservation, and renewables. This will foster local jobs, clean water, clean air, and it will lower bills. Our cultural and natural heritage, along with our bank accounts, deserve better than these proposed rate hikes. Thank you for your time.
If you would like to have the papers
Yes.
included in the record of the case as an exhibit, I'll just answer the question.
Okay, thank you.
Mark that as Exhibit 1. Thank you, Mr. Mincy.
All right, thanks.
Marion Stigman.
You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Make yourself comfortable.
Ma'am, would you say the name and address for the record, please?
My name is Marion Sigmund, S-I-G-M-O-N, and I live at 16 Salisbury Drive in Asheville.
Thank you. Please proceed with your statement.
Yes. I didn't come exactly prepared to make a statement, but I do want to just mention that I'm here at the request of the State Office of the AARP. I'm a volunteer with AARP, which is a membership organization of people in North Carolina age 50 and above. Many of the members of the AARP are among people in North Carolina who have been displaced as manufacturers of manufacturing jobs, who are now underemployed, who are low income, who are older, above, our membership is 50 and above, so we have a lot of older workers as well as people who are retired. And these are the individual residential customers who will be most heavily affected, it seems to me from what I understand, by this rate increase that's being requested. Even though, in many ways, Duke is a good corporate partner to business and to the industry that is being recruited into North Carolina. Remember that there are many people who live here, who live in Marion, who live in Morganton and Asheville and everything, and it's really hard for them to pay the power bills that they have, much less an increase. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a statement to the commission tonight? I'll do the pretty good part.
You solemnly swear that the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Have a seat, make yourself known.
Ma'am, would you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Elizabeth O'Neill. I live at 396 Sugar Cove Road in Marion, North Carolina.
Can you spell that last name, please, ma'am?
O', capital N-A-N.
And are you testifying solely on your own behalf or also on behalf of an organization?
I serve as director of Protect All Children's Environment, a national chemical injury support organization.
Okay.
And I also am a local ratepayer.
Please proceed with your statement.
I came to oppose the rate hike. I do not personally choose to have the investment that I make in my electrical service go toward nuclear plants. I would much rather, if I was going to have my rates increased, see that money applied to clean energy, alternative energy. Another issue that I came to speak to about tonight is the history of toxic exposures that are deliberately produced by Duke Power and other electrical plants over the years. These range from PCBs and transformers to creosote and poles that are still a tremendous problem, to the chronic use of Roundup pesticide and other commercial toxic pesticides that are used along right-of-ways that get into our water. I think over the last few years I have probably seen at least 20 studies showing human health problems from the use of Roundup pesticides. Most recently, the discovery that there are 3 human cells types that are destroyed by Roundup use, damaged, and one that actually kills the cell within 24 hours. This can only be considered premeditated random homicide at this point, that we have continued to allow these poisons and these very dangerous products to be universally spread in everybody's backyard and contaminating everyone's home. And I would ask that Duke Power certainly reconsider their usage and their past usage and cleanup of these products.
Is that complete the statement?
Please.
Well, I have a question. Are you saying that the Roundup that people spray on their brick walls is a deadly poison?
Yes, sir, I am.
If that is true, then people that spray it on their brick walls, they're
endangering themselves and the public.
No further questions.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Will you come forward, please?
Solemnly swear that the testimony about in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Please state your name for the record.
Margaret O'Nan, that's O' capital N-A-N, 396 Sugar Cove Road, Marion, North Carolina.
Are you related to the lady who just testified?
Yes, my mother.
Please proceed with your statement.
I just wanted to add that I agree with many of the previous testimony given, that the cost increase will really be a hardship for just about everybody I know at the moment. I can't really think of anybody that, is going to just be able to easily absorb that, and would also urge Duke Power to go towards renewable energy and not the nuclear energy and other, fossil fuel burning methods of energy production.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there anyone else who would like to participate in this meeting?
Very well. I would like that there are all the witnesses who wish to testify. We appreciate you coming out tonight on a rainy night. We will take this evidence and make it part of the record.
I have one question. I live in Polk County, and it would be really nice to have a hearing closer to where I live. And I'm not aware there having been any meetings in that vicinity. I'm wondering if there's any plans for that.
Not in this case. We have limited time, limited resources, and we try to spread it out. We've been to Franklin last night. We're here in Marion tonight. We're going to Winston-Salem, High Point area in Charlotte. So we can't go everywhere. Thank you. We'll take that into consideration in the future. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be adjourned. Thank you.